When we take a photograph of someone, it's usually of friends, family, or someone who is familiar to us. But every now and then, a photograph surfaces where the person featured has either faked their identity, or for whatever reason, has deliberately taken steps to disguise who they are. Here we look at 5 different cases, ranging from criminals to just plain weird, where the subject in the photographs have never been identified. Hit those lights, sit back, and enjoy. Kate. This next photograph was submitted to our website. We've changed the names of the people involved in the story, and have spoken to the poster to ask permission to use the image in this video. We'll call her Kate, and here is the story behind the image. In November 2013, Kate and her family and friends took a day trip to Savannah, Georgia. Kate's mum and 2 of her friends decided to split off from the main group to do a walking tour of Savannah's historical buildings. During the tour, they took a break from walking in Johnson Square, an area that dates back to 1733. The tour group was standing around in a circle when Kate's mum noticed an old man and a little girl, no older than 5 years old, sitting on a marble bench that was a monument to a famous singer named Johnny Mercer. The pair were less than 50 feet away from them. Kate's mum, who we'll call Sally, was instantly struck by the little girl because of her beautiful white dress, black dress shoes, fur coat, and the way she laid on the bench in the fetal position. The little girl must have sensed that the pair was staring at her as she immediately rose to attention, crawled off the bench, and began playfully skipping towards the tour group. Although she kept a safe distance from the pair, they could tell that she was intrigued by them. After a few moments, the little girl retreated towards a garden in front of one of the estates and crouched in amongst the tall grass and trees. Seeing a great photo opportunity, Sally pulled out her phone and took a photo of the little girl. It wasn't until later that afternoon, when the family and friends regrouped, that Sally and her friends began discussing the little girl and how pretty she was, her strange behaviour, and how the old man on the bench, who they assumed was the little girl's guardian, didn't seem to acknowledge her wandering off and playing in the garden. They then looked at the photo they had and were shocked to see not the pretty little girl they remembered, but a girl with a hollow face, sunken eyes and nose that appeared to look like 3 black holes. Take a look at the photo. The family have shown the photograph to various people, and some believe the sunken face and features are an optical illusion caused by shadows from the trees above her. However, that still doesn't explain the little girl's clothing, her strange behaviour, and the old man she was sitting with. After doing a little research, it was discovered Johnson Square has a child ghost named Gracie Watson, or Little Gracie. She was the daughter of the manager of the Pulaski House Hotel, which was located just off Johnson Square, but has since been demolished. Gracie loved being the centre of attention and would entertain hotel guests at the hotel and tourists in Johnson Square. In 1889, tragically, she died of pneumonia, aged just 6, and her parents buried her in a nearby cemetery and commissioned a marble statue of the child in her memory. Since her death, visitors of the cemetery and Johnson Square have seen a little girl in a white dress playing by herself and on occasion interacting with tourists. She is supposedly a very friendly ghost, so is this the photo of little Gracie? What do you think? The Wheaton Bandit. This next image is a series of photographs of an unidentified bank robber known as the Wheaton Bandit. Between 2002 and 2006, he was suspected of being responsible for up to 16 armed robberies in the Wheaton, Illinois area. At the time of the offences, it was thought he was around 25 to 35 years old. During the robberies, he always wore a hood or ski mask, and carried his gun in a distinctive way, with his trigger finger placed along the side of the gun in a safety position, rather than on the trigger, suggesting he had law enforcement or military training. He also changed his clothing for each attack, and it was believed he wore a bulletproof vest. As well as the photos of him in a mask, there are also at least 2 possible photos of him without a face covering. These were captured in December 2004, when an unidentified man entered a Mid-America bank in Glen Allen without carrying out any transaction, but he was caught on the bank's security cameras. 2 weeks after the sighting, in January 2005, the Wheaton Bandit robbed the bank. Again in November 2006, a witness spotted a suspicious man in the parking lot of the Fifth Third Bank 1 hour before it was robbed. This witness helped the police draw a composite sketch of the suspicious person. It must have been pretty accurate, because after the sketch was released to the public in December 2006, the robberies abruptly stopped. However, despite a reward of $50,000 offered for information about the robber, nothing ever materialised, and he was never caught. And as of December 2011, the 5-year statute of limitations on the bank robbery charges ran out, meaning he was officially off the hook, and unless the Wheaton Bandit starts robbing banks again, he is now beyond the reach of the law. The Leather Man of New York. This photo, taken in June 1885, was of a mysterious vagabond who for several years travelled a circuit between the Connecticut River and the Hudson River in New York. The route was a 365-mile trip, and he repeated it continually from around 1857 to 1889. The mysterious traveller earned the nickname Leatherman as he was dressed head to toe in handmade leather clothes. He was of unknown origin, although he spoke fluent French and broken English, leading many to believe he was French-Canadian. He communicated mostly with grunts and gestures and rarely spoke, but on the odd occasion when he did, if asked about his background, the conversation would abruptly end. He was a well-known and frequent visitor to various towns on his route and returned to each town every 34 to 36 days, stopping now and then to buy food and supplies, although it's unknown how he earned his money. He lived in rock shelters along his route and survived blizzards and other foul weather by heating them with fire. They later became known as Leatherman Caves. Because of the route he took, that included towns that were exempt from the state tramp law passed in 1879, he was free to roam, although he was arrested at the request of the Connecticut Humane Society in 1888 and was hospitalised, but was found to be sane except for an emotional affliction, and was released to carrying on his nomadic life. He ultimately succumbed to mouth cancer, and his body was found on March 24, 1889. Along the possessions found with him was a French prayer book. He was buried near Route 9, and his grave inscription read, "Final resting place of Jules Burgley." But this identification was incorrect, and investigators revealed his death certificate had no name, and his identity was unknown. It was later decided that his body should be exhumed and moved back from the road. But when they dug up the grave, there was no trace of Leatherman's remains, only some coffin nails, which were reburied in a new pine box, along with dirt from the old gravesite. The new tombstone, installed on May 25, 2011, simply reads, "The Leatherman." Part of the reason for the exhumation process was to test his remains to determine his origins. Johnny Lee Mills. Johnny Lee Mills was an alias used by an unidentified teenage male who was arrested in St. Louis in 1990 on suspicion of being a runaway. He ran away from the youth shelter before his identity could be confirmed, and all the information he did give, including his name, age, and other details, turned out to be false, and his true identity has never been discovered, and to this day it's unknown what happened to him. As well as using the name Johnny Lee Mills, he also used the names Steve Johnson and Randy Smith. It's feared that due to the lifestyle he led, he may have met with foul play, and may even be one of the unidentified bodies found every year across the country. While in police custody, he claimed to work the truck stops, which might indicate involvement in sex work. It's said, it's sad to think no one reported him missing, and this case is now considered closed by law enforcement. It would be nice to believe that he is still alive and was reunited with his family or guardians. Although the case is closed, this hasn't stopped speculation that he is possibly the 1992 St. Louis John Doe, a young man who was found murdered in Missouri in 1992, whose identity has been unknown for over 26 years. Obviously, if any of you can shed any light on who he is or his fate, I'm sure the St. Louis Police Department would be pleased to hear from you. The Apeman of Brazil. This next case is a little bit strange, and it's more than likely a fake, but because the photograph is very old, and not privy to modern techniques of faking, we thought we'd feature it to see what you made of it. The photograph was taken in the 1930s and published in the Dutch magazine Het Leven in 1937, under the headline Mysterious Ape Man, amid claims that the half-man, half-monkey was discovered in Brazil's Amazon jungle. The groundbreaking story made the rounds of the world at the time and convinced many that there had been a monkey man living in the Amazon jungle. A Swiss billionaire who was on an expedition to Brazil even boasted that he caught a monkey man and killed him, but was unable to bring the body back to prove it. The story was largely forgotten about until the photograph resurfaced online in 2012. Many modern-day observers claim to have spotted tall tale signs of prosthetic makeup on his face, and point out that he is remarkably clean-shaven and well-groomed for a wild creature caught in the jungle, and that the ape man's mouth and brow are stuck into place using crude makeup techniques. Others believe that the ape man is most likely an unfortunate individual born with birth defects and exploited to wear the makeup and prosthetics, to pose and pretend to be a newly discovered species. However, there are still those that want to believe in the existence of the ape man, and throughout the 20th century and into the 21st, reports of wild and mythic ape-like beasts living in remote and far-flung locations have fascinated people across the world. So what do you think? Is the photograph a tragic exploitation of a disabled human being, a fake, or was he really an unknown hominid discovered in the Amazon jungle in the 1930s? So that's 5 mysterious photos of unidentified people. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.